So first of all, thank everybody for joining us in person. Appreciate that. And we have a couple of people online as well. So I'm just going to walk through, give a general overview of this event, give you some information. There's some paperwork that I'll go through, talk about briefly in a second, but that is most of the information that correlates to everything you need to know with this information. There'll be some actuarial discussion, some PowerPoint slides and so forth that you guys don't have in front of you, but we will be sharing those online later this week. First of all, just a brief thank you to Fire Chief, Deputy Fire Chief, sorry, Edmonston and Fire Captain Carney that have helped us sort of communicate this, get questions, concerns, bring it to our attention, bring it to the Board of Supervisors' attention in some circumstance. So I appreciate that information. The first thing we touch on is the agenda. So the first page of the agenda provides a background into how service purchases came to be for the county and for your retirement system specifically. So that's just some background information you can have just to understand how it came to be. I'm not going to go into any detail with that. Wanted to make sure that was available for anybody that's not aware or would like to understand it a little bit more. So with this agenda, in addition to the background, there's an agenda outline. So we're walking through what we're going to do. It's a 2-hour session. We're probably not going to take the full 2 hours. We built in 2 half-hour sessions for questions and answers so that we have to make sure that any questions get addressed timely. So after I speak briefly, then I'm going to hand it off to our consulting actuary. So we have in-person Corley Taylor, and then online we have Fiona Liston. So they'll be going through the calculation of the cost of a service purchase. And then we'll have our first Q&A session. We'd like to limit the questions specifically to anything related to the cost and the calculation, actuarial stuff, all that information that I'm not equipped to handle or answer questions. We'll focus on that. Then the second group of presentations will be staff from Fairfax County Retirement Systems. We have Larry Little here and Stephanie Davis are our senior retirement analyst and retirement analyst respectively. So they'll be going through how you actually request a service purchase, what the process is, what to expect, documentation, verification, stuff like that. And then we'll have, like I said, another half-hour Q&A after that for any questions whatsoever. Lastly, on the agenda, there is a breakdown, or as I call it, a matrix of estimated costs for each plan for URS, at least for Plan B, then Plan D and E, and Plan F. This matrix is just to give you a very rough idea. If you're looking to purchase 4 years of service, gauge what your salary range is and how many years of service you currently have, and that'll give you the general cost for purchasing 4 years of service. If you're looking for half of that, you can do some general math to try to figure that out. But this is just an overview so people are aware of it ahead of time. We do plan to go live as soon as the Board of Supervisors approves the amendment to the ordinance. Once that's actually in effect, then we can actually provide specific calculations for anybody that's interested in getting what's going to cost me to make a purchase of service. So in a couple weeks, right now, the Board of Supervisors are projecting they're going to meet on May 21st. So we expect them to approve the ordinance change at that time, and then we can provide estimate calculations going forward. In addition to your the agenda, there's a frequently asked questions, mostly specific to URS. The way this is written up is that as we go through the presentation, it's going to mostly align with what I'm talking about. So general information, I'll hit most of those points as we go through. And then as we go into the presentation from Chiron, our actuary, there'll be additional questions that are called out specific to that topic. So we'll get into calculating the cost of a service purchase. So if you have any questions in general while the presentation is happening, if you refer to those frequently asked questions, hopefully we address a lot of the questions you might have. So hopefully it'll help you supplement your information that you get out of this session. Lastly, there's a couple additional documents at the very back of the handouts, which is actuarial information. if anybody's interested in actually trying to run through an actuarial calculation themselves instead of relying on us to provide it for you. There's enough general information there to do that. Myself would never be comfortable doing it myself, but there is step-by-step instructions and a present value factor table available for anybody that's interested in that. Lastly, with the information both that's being presented online and the paperwork that is being handed out here, as well as recordings of this event, will be posted to the retirement website later this week. So that information is in this documentation, but it's also for anybody who's interested, fairfaxcounty.gov/retirement/news-0. And that's where you can find all this information going forward. I think that, oh, sorry, let me hit one more thing before I hand it off. I want to go through a couple of the general information items here I have in the frequently asked questions. Like I said, first of all, the Board of Supervisors has to approve amendments to the ordinance language before we have the, power or authority to actually do service purchase calculations, send paperwork, draft contracts, etc. So until the Board of Supervisors approves that language, which, like I said, we're expecting that to happen on May 21st, we can't provide you specific individualized estimates for your costs until that happens. Okay, specifically for who can purchase service, and I want to touch on this because the uniform retirement system is a little bit different in how it was set up for who can purchase what. So for military service purchases, the collective bargaining agreement and the ordinance that the Board of Supervisors is adopting or has been presented with and I expect them to adopt allows for military service to be purchased by specifically fire and rescue department personnel and sworn officers under the Fairfax County Police Department, which I believe is specific to an animal protection police, animal control. I don't know the proper terminology. Those two groups are specifically the ones that are called out in the ordinance language, the drafted ordinance language, that will be able to make a service or a military purchase. And only the animal protection police will be allowed to make a prior law enforcement service purchase. That information that decision is up to the Board of Supervisors specifically. So we don't have any control of who can or cannot purchase what service, but that was based off of the collective bargaining agreements and their interpretation of how it was meant to be enacted. I do know that there has been some concern from the Board of Trustees, for the uniform retirement system and others about excluding anybody that's involved in the system from purchasing service, either military or other law enforcement service or public service. So there is some request to persuade or ask the Board of Supervisors to consider inclusion of all URS members. But at this point, that's as far as it's going until they actually make an amendment change. So I just want to give everybody that background. Lastly, the most important part of the actuarial calculation of this is that it has to be cost neutral to the retirement system. So that means that the retirement system is no better or worse off if somebody does or does not purchase service, either military or outside police service. So the full cost of this benefit, if anybody's looking to purchase military service, etc., the full cost is the responsibility of the member of the system. Generally, as you work currently in active employment, you have a contribution cost that comes out of your paychecks, but also the county provides a contribution as well that goes to retirement benefit. However, this is outside of that, so this full responsibility of the cost is to the member, and we'll get into that a lot more detail in a moment. So with that, I'll hand it off to Corley.
Hey, Brad, do you mind if I say something real quick, just to the members out there?
Yeah, that's Brian Edmiston. Hey, Brian.
Hey, y'all. Not to take up a lot of time as we get to the important stuff, the actuaries. I just wanted to emphasize one, the commitment from the executive staff to put this together along with the actuary Corley and the team here. But I'll just to remind everybody that if you guys need a direct contact, if you have any issues communication wise, getting in touch with Brad and his team, please reach out to myself, Sean Carney, Bob Consul as your retiree, and if by chance there's any sheriff on board, David O'Neill as a representative. Here for question, or excuse me, I'll stay back around quiet, but if you guys have questions, please reach out to us. Feel free to shoot us an email. You know how to get to us pretty quickly, outside if you have any issues on that side. And we will continue to get you guys more information, as Brad mentioned, from this thorough introduction today. So thank you, and let us know what you think.
Hi, I'm Coralie Taylor, and attending through Teams is Fiona Liston, and we are the actuaries for the Fairfax retirement system.
And the video's off. What happened?
Chat open, Mike.
Not anymore.
Okay, thank you.
And we're here today to kind of walk through in detail how to determine the cost of this service purchase. Were you to make a decision to purchase service? All right, before we go into the calculations, I just wanted to talk about the types of service purchase available to you currently. So one type of service is if you are in a specific plan in the uniform retirement system and you were to transfer to another plan within the Fairfax retirement system. And in that case, the county is already aware that you are a member in the system. They have, since you've been hired, been making contributions to the funding of the system. And they have all of that information, which is what we use to determine what needs to go into the plan to fund it. And in that case, when you transition to another plan, the cost to you would only be the member contributions because the plan has been funded. The other scenario is if you are purchasing service for work that's performed outside of the Fairfax retirement system. And in that case, the county has not been aware that you have that service. They have not been making contributions on your behalf towards that service. So in order to purchase that service, you would need to be responsible for the entire cost of purchasing that service and the subsequent increase in liability, which is what Brad was alluding to earlier. So I think Brad already mentioned there's a ordinance change that is required, anticipated in May 21st, to allow you to purchase between 0 and 48 months, up to 48 months, maximum of 4 years of service purchase. And if you were to move forward with purchasing that service, it's going to apply to two different things. So first, it will increase the benefit that you will ultimately receive when you retire. In addition to that, it would also increase the service that you need in order to ultimately retire. So you have to have 25 years of service to retire, typically. And whatever service you purchase will go towards that, meeting that 25-year requirement. And then I mentioned that before, you are on the hook for the full cost of purchasing the service and the increase in the liability due to that purchase.
Police officers, retirement system.
Yeah.
So these slides are okay.
We use the same slides for both. So in order to do this calculation, we have to make a number of assumptions because we are looking at what we anticipate your benefit to be when you ultimately retire. So there's a number of assumptions that we make, but some of the key assumptions are that we assume that you're going to retire when you're first eligible for a benefit, typically 25 years. We assume from today that you will receive two and a 2.25% salary increases every year until you reach retirement. And then we also use some assumptions to discount that expected retirement benefit all the way back to today to determine the cost to you. And the assumptions for calculating the present value of that benefit are 6 3/4 interest, a cost of living adjustment that is anticipated at retirement and each year in the future of 2.1%. And then mortality tables, which were adopted by the board with the last experience study performed in 2020. So all of those assumptions were adopted by the board and are subject to change, generally coincident with experience studies, which we perform every 5 years. The next one we anticipate performing in 2025, next year. All right, moving on. So here's the steps to actually perform this calculation. So as I mentioned, we need to determine what is your retirement benefit going to be if you do not purchase any service, and then what is your retirement benefit if you actually go through and purchase the service. So in order to do that, we're going to project the salary, or excuse me, the service we anticipate at retirement, generally earning a year of service every year in the future. We also need to project the salary to your expected retirement age. So we look at the salary that you're currently earning and then project that forward with the 2.25% salary increases. Then we convert that final salary to a final average salary because the benefit, your retirement benefit is based on a 36-month average or 78 pay period, I believe. So we determine the final average salary and we use all of that with the plan multiplier to calculate your projected normal retirement benefit. So we've done that. And then we multiply that expected normal retirement benefit by a present value factor to determine what the value of the benefit would be today. And we do this calculation with service, without service, and the difference would be the cost to you to purchase this service. Oh, moving on, now we're going to go through a few examples to kind of demonstrate the impact of purchasing this service. So when you actually go to Stephanie and get a calculation, that will look at the actual plan you're in and your specific details. But for purposes of this example, we're assuming that this participant is in the police plan, but the mechanics of how this calculation is done is very similar. We're assuming the person we're looking at now is a newly hired participant. They're fresh out, ready to go. They've got no service currently. They're 25 years old, and their salary at hire is $100,000. So that is being paid as of today. So this slide has a lot of numbers on it, but I will try to go through so that you're able to understand. So as I mentioned, they are currently 25 years old, no service. So in the middle column there, the calculations are assuming that no service is purchased. We anticipate that, as I mentioned, they're going to retire at their earliest retirement age, which in this case means they will have 25 years of service at age 50. They will be able to retire at age 50. And their salary at retirement, the number 3 there, is we have assumed that 2.25% salary increase from today for 25 years going forward. We convert the salary to a final average salary, 36-month average, which comes out at slightly lower there for a final average salary of $170,605. And then we take the service and this final average salary and multiply it times the multiplier to come up with a projected benefit at retirement of $119,423. So that is the benefit out in the future at age 50. We need to bring that back to what the present value would be, what the value of that benefit today. And we do that by multiplying it times a present value factor, which in this case is 3.2247. And so the ultimate present value of this benefit or this participant's benefit with no service purchase is $385,101. So in the last column there, for purposes of this example, we're assuming that this participant is purchasing the maximum number of years of military service or service purchase for. And as you can see, that means that they start off with 4 years of service rather than 0 years of service. So they only need 21 more years of work to be able to retire. And so they would be retiring 4 years earlier than without a service purchase at age 46. So the salary at retirement in this case is going to be slightly lower. And that's because they're going to be retiring 4 years earlier. They have 4 years fewer salary increases anticipated. Convert that to a final average salary, calculate the projected benefit, and that comes in slightly lower than without the service purchase at $109,254. Then we multiply that benefit by a present value factor of 4.4197 for a present value of $483,000. The present value is higher in this case because they are, in this situation, 4 years closer to their retirement age than they were on the other example that I was showing without the service purchase. So it's worth more. Take the difference between the amounts in number 6 and the ultimate cost of purchasing service. If you are newly hired, 25 years old, salary of $100,000 is $97,772. We also wanted to show this as a percentage of salary. And so that's in number 9 there, 98% of the 2024 salary is the cost to purchase service, 4 years of service. I think this just explains stuff I already talked about. So now we will look at an example. For someone who, as it's sitting here today, is 15 years older than the example that I just walked through. So they are 40 years old. They've already got 15 years in the system, and now they're looking to purchase 4 years of service. So in walking through this one, I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I just want to show the differences to the example that we just looked at. So in this case, they are still going to retire with 25 years of service. They are going to retire without service purchase at 50, and with the 4 years of service purchase, the 4 years earlier at age 46. The salary and the final average salary in the items marked 3 are identical to the prior example, and so is the projected benefit. Because we've assumed that this person also started with $100,000, and then their salary has grown with 2.25% increases to 2000 for 15 years. So the difference between this one and the prior example comes when you're looking at the present value factor. So in this case, you can see that the present value factors are quite a bit larger than they were in the prior example. And this comes back to the fact that they are closer to retirement. So the factors are larger, and the present value without service purchase comes in at just over $1 million. And with service purchase, it's almost $1.3 million for a cost of purchase of $263,000. And again, wanted to convert that as a percent of salary. And the salary in 2024 under this case, they've had the 15 years of 2.25 increases. It's at $139,000, and the cost as a percentage of salary is 188%. So big takeaways here. The cost of purchase service when you already have service earned in the plan is higher than it would be if you are newly hired and have less service. And the cost as a percentage of salary is also higher. All that. Okay, so then I wanted to talk about the present value factors, because this can be quite a confusing topic, because there are a lot of some assumptions in play when we calculate the present value factor. So when we're determining a present value factor, what we're looking at is, okay, what's your retirement benefit going to be when you commence your payments? Then we look at, well, we anticipate next year you are going to receive a cost of living adjustment, but we also need to look at what is the probability you're still going to be alive next year. So we have to use some public safety retirement tables in order to do that. And then we look at it the following year, and so on and so forth, for your expected lifetime. And we take all those payments that we anticipate you receiving, and we discount them all back to what we expect that to be today. And it's a very complex formula and can be hard to wrap your head around. So we wanted to show that kind of in a different form as something maybe you've seen before. So here is a graph of a bank account. So if you have a bank account and you are wanting to withdraw X amount at your retirement age, in this example, say 50, what amount would you need to put in to that account today that would grow with interest so that you could withdraw that X amount at age 50? And if you're 25 at the time that you make that deposit, you have 25 years for that balance to grow to a value at 50. But if you were to make a deposit at age 40 instead, the value, the amount needed to be deposited has to be larger to account for the fact that you have less time to accrue, get interest and get that value that you're hoping to get. So the difference in those two amounts is why the cost to purchase service is larger when you are closer to your retirement age, your anticipated retirement age. All right, and this is the last example that I wanted to go through today. And this is for a participant who is actually currently eligible to retire. So they are not purchasing any additional eligibility to receive their retirement benefit. They're eligible to retire immediately today and receive that benefit. So in this case, the 4 years of service purchase is entirely going to the increase in the projected retirement benefit, as opposed to the ability to retire earlier. So the differences here between the other two examples is they currently have 25 years of service in the system, they're eligible to retire today, so at age 50. And then the service is 25 years in the case of no service purchase, and then 29 years with the 4-year service purchase. The salary at retirement under both scenarios is the same because, again, they're currently eligible to retire. We don't anticipate any additional increases from what's already been received. And the projected benefit is larger under the service purchase because they have an additional 4 years of service. So 119,000 without service purchase and 136,000 with the service purchase. And then here you can see that present value is significantly larger than the example for the 40-year-old. It's now up at 16.8562 for both. And the present value of these benefits is well over, it's over 2 million. 2,013,000 in the no service purchase case, and then 2,335,000 in the service purchase case, for a cost of purchase of 322,000. So that is higher than both of the prior scenarios, higher than the case of the person that's 40 years old. But if you look at the cost as a percentage of salary, in this case, they've got 174,000. They've had 25 years of 2.25% salary increases, and that cost as a percentage of salary is 184%, which is actually smaller than the scenario in which the participant was 40 years old. So I wanted to look into why that is the case, and it has to do with the piece of the service that is purchasing eligibility for these retirement benefits. So this graph here is showing the cost as a percentage of salary based on whether you buy 1, 2, or more years of service. The one we've kind of been talking about throughout this example here is that dark blue at the top. That's for purchasing 4 years of service. And so once you've reached 21 years of service accrued, when you make a purchase of service, you're purchasing diminishing years of eligibility service. So if you've got 21 years of service, you purchase 4 years, that will get you to 25, and you're immediately eligible for a benefit. Similarly, if you are 22 years old and purchase 4 years of service, only 3 years of that is necessary for you to become eligible for a retirement benefit. So the cost as a percentage of salary is lower due to purchasing less of the eligibility service. I think that's it. Yeah. So I don't intend to go through any of the other slides.
Keeps getting unmuted.
So we are kind of through the main slides that we expected to speak about. So we're happy to open it up to questions for anyone that has any questions pertaining to the actual calculation of the service purchase. We also have in the packet, as Brad mentioned, instructions for if you wanted to do this calculation yourself, you are more than welcome. It's quite a complex process, but it's available for you if you're, a numbers person. Yeah, if you have any questions.
It's hard for my mind to wrap around the value. How is it beneficial to me? Because the way it sounds like you're doing compound interest or dollar cost value of what our investment initially. Because if you do the same math, if you were to invest our money, not with the fair value with the market, we gain more money that way. So we're not really benefiting on ourselves. Technically, we're losing money because the current value right now is like 7-10% gains. And like, if you use that 25-year balance of 230,000, I don't know how much more they gain per month on a value and a 4% roll rate, 5% roll rate, so about 50,000 more per gains. So there is no benefit buying this. So how do you guys calculate that?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on what you value. If you're looking to increase this guaranteed retirement benefit that you will receive at your retirement that is being funded on your behalf, and we anticipate that that will continue in perpetuity, then some people might value that a lot. You know, the market is volatile. It's all over the place. Yeah, you know, you can earn double digits or
7% is a good return, right?
Right.
So I'm just wondering, like, the way you explain it, like, whatever collective bargain has no benefit to anybody. Which is the way to explain to me, that's how I understand see it, right? So
no
if-
benefit in what sense?
As far as income, like, the person will gain the 21 to 25 years, right? So if I were to have 21 hard years and we're getting 25 years,
Mhm.
right? Let's say it'll gain me $2,000 per month more, you have earlier 4 years,
Mhm.
right? If I were to invest the same value of that amount in my grant, right? The gains on that initial investment is more worth it if I were to do it outside of Purpose County. Collective bargaining offer is supposed to be the best thing you can borrow for a veteran that serves time in the military. Like if you invest that $89,000 for the 25-year-old soldier that put his time in at 65,000 for a plan, and he invested for 24 years at 7% return, worth of value is more than his retirement 4 years to retire early.
Well,
I'm just trying to understand how that's beneficial to us. How is this presented to the collective bargaining department or you guys? You know, it's hard for me, because right now, there's no benefit to us buying.
well, correct. I mean, the benefit, it's a deferred benefit. You're not going to see results until you ultimately retire.
I just want to add one thing to that as well. So sure, there's a value to a purchase
I
or
agree.
not purchasing it.
Correct.
That's one aspect of it. But there's also people, you could purchase this service and then you therefore don't have to work as much in your capacity.
Time.
So, yeah, I understand the greater benefit of standard investment returns over time. In terms of the calculation, and like you said, this is a defined benefit plan. So it doesn't matter in general what happens in the market. It could tank, could have another recession or worse. The county funds these benefits, and will continue to fund these benefits for your lifetimes. At least that's expectation for everybody. So do you want a potential guaranteed benefit that allows you the opportunity to retire earlier than you would normally be able to because you have to work a certain amount of years before you become eligible without it being reduced, receive a reduced benefit? Or do you want to invest your money elsewhere? So I think it's a very good individual question for every person. But I think those are the main things I think about the distinction between what value provides.
No, I agree, just because the first law is basically rank-based, income-based, and with the multiplier for 1.07 times the year's source of interest, right? But you guys based it, not you, but the calculation based it on the current income, not the service. Like if I was a private, one was a major, one was a captain, those are different firms. Purchase amount because of rank-based system, right? But now you're having an E1 come in the department, trying to recruit somebody, hey, it's gonna cost you $80,000 for, you know what I mean? So like, how is that basis? How do you, like I said, it's just hard for me to get my mind wrapped around how it's valuable to us, this offer to anybody coming in.
Comparing it to firms. If I were back.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think they're doing the recruitment part of it.
No, I'm just saying, but like, no, I understand that part because what's not percentage listed because the value's different.
Yeah, I think the only reason the county bought it was cost. I think that's kind of what they're getting at.
Oh, yeah.
It's not
So it's really not a benefit to anybody, it's just costing you their county. Okay. Got it. Makes
Sure.
sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
I agree with that
That's
assessment.
lose money. I got it.
Because, yeah, it's really, if someone has, whatever reason, they have a couple $100,000 or
Land loans, yeah.
401k, they might be able to do this and retire a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years earlier.
I,
So,
I
yeah.
think what he's saying is like, we were sold initially, this was recruitment, we're doing this as recruitment. Nobody that is coming out of the military is a E4 has hundreds of thousands of dollars, $100,000. So it's not really what it was sold at, was that's what we,
Yep.
but somebody that's invested in deferred comp over the last 10 or 15 years might be able to. But
Right,
True.
yep.
And that's, if you're 100% accurate with that. What this is the actual cost to the system based on the collectively bargained provision, if you will call it that. So realistically, there might be very few people that, especially coming into new service, that could even do anything like this, especially on the road.
Why did you use $100,000? Is it just for the easy numbers?
Yes,
What anybody's making,
Yeah.
starting in.
yeah. This doesn't reflect what's actually happening, yes.
And this is based on a 25-year retirement. Say you buy back time, you get closer to the end and you say, hey, I only got, like, I want to go out at 22 years or 21 years. We don't have to do the whole 25 years. You can take that loss, right?
Retirement's still.
Retirement. Is there a penalty at the end of it if you bought your time back early and you say, I want to leave before I have a full 25 years?
No,
No.
you have 25 years.
Calculated on that.
If you completed a purchase, you have 25 years. If you have 21 plus 4.
No, I'm saying you don't.
Use an example, I have 17 years.
You're,
Like today, I got 21, I can get up
We're
tomorrow.
this is for the value, and then we're gonna do question and answers for the actual process and retirement eligibility. We could.
Do you wanna hold-
But
That's my question too, actually.
Right,
Same.
right, 2 words for Chiron, just about the cost of the calculator.
Okay.
We're gonna do a secondary part with question and answers, and we can get more detail about that,
sorry,
or at least just with the cost.
I had a question, but the salary, is that based on what our salary is today, 2024 base salary, not including any holidays or anything else, or does that include shift differential, holiday pay, doesn't include the last 3 years, like retirement is usually based on the last 3 years of your salary, but includes all that, so.
Based on your hourly rate of pay, what it would be at 2081. So
This exact same.
at the time that you request the estimate. So,
Okay,
yeah.
so let's say it's after July 1st, so this one's going to affect July 1st after the new contract, so till they shift.
We're gonna get into that.
Hey.
There's a difference between that.
I'll just step aside and,
Yeah.
That was the big thing. I'm like, that's
Yeah,
a huge difference in amount of money.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that because there's gonna be requests on how you request this calculation, and then the effective date for the pay increases is the 13th of July. So we're gonna, you have the application in front of me. If you're eligible, you can fill it out. Once it's approved, send it to us, but I'm gonna start
Thank you.
we're gonna come.
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking at this. I'm like, what is the salary?
Yeah, this is just for the cost part. Now we're
Yeah.
gonna get into what we're gonna do.
And if you do have any other actuarial related questions at the end, we'll obviously address those.
Okay.
And the check wants to see.
All right, so when it comes time for you guys to actually request the calculation and move forward, it will be Larry and myself at the retirement office that will handle everything. So Chiron handles creating the calculator and kind of teaching you guys how it works, but we'll be actually moving through it with you. So we're just gonna go over what some of the requirements are and the process and how you can do payments, things like that. So a lot of these we've probably already talked about. most of you probably know where we are. So we're right on Route 50. This is our main office number. If you guys have specific questions about the process, we do like you to email us at this service purchases at Fairfax County. This will give us the opportunity to kind of track what questions come in. And it's a shared inbox between several different people. So hopefully you shouldn't have to wait too long. We've touched on this already. This talks about who is able to purchase it. I think everyone in here is just fire and rescue, yeah? You don't have any, I'm sorry? Okay. You are unique. Okay, so most people in here can just do the active duty prior military service. And then you in particular would also have the opportunity for the prior law enforcement as well. So you would have a different form. I would say just see us afterwards if you want to, because that might be a little easier. So like Coralie mentioned and Brad, when you purchase the service, it will be used in the calculation. Once you do retire, it will help increase your eligibility. So if you had 21 years, you purchased the 4, you're eligible immediately for normal service once the contract is paid in full. Does not count towards vesting. Sorry, does not count towards vesting. So you do need to vest. I don't think anyone in here is under the 5 years, but in terms of like recruiting tools, as you talked about, it does not count towards vesting. So this one in particular may be beneficial for the animal control. It'll go over the difference between the prior law enforcement. For most other people, you're looking at the active duty military. It shows what you can purchase. So we do limit it to 48 months that you're allowed to purchase. We would need copies of DD 214. You have to be honorably discharged. And you do need to complete the purchase within 4 years. Okay, I think that's right. Larry.
For the application?
Yes.
You all have the application.
Or is July 1st, 2024, or upon hire?
So 4 years from like commencing the actual contract.
Right.
Yeah. You put under-
Payment.
Yeah, and we'll go over that part too. I'm just gonna shift you over to Larry for the
So
application.
you all have the application for fire. This is for, of course, military service. Up to 4 years, and the paperwork in addition to this 1-page application is a DD 214. Once we get that, we'll do the calculation and send it to you. It'll be a service purchase contract. It assumes the full amount. So if you have 4 years, the first contract will be for the full amount. We've gotten questions, and we're going to go over a little bit on the examples. If you only want to buy less than that, well, the first contract, based on the number of people available, we're going to initially do it, like I said, for the full amount, but then show you how to estimate if you only want to do 1 or 2 years to give you an idea. But to do the actual contract, if you contact us, I don't want to do 4, I want to do 2, we will send you a contract for that amount, because you'll sign the contract and tell us what you want to do. And we'll go over also the payment options. But it's just a 1-page application, name, address, and then submit it with your DD 214.
Question about D214, what about NGB 200?
Collective bargaining only listed a DD 214, and that's the only thing we can accept. I know orders were the other question. If somebody specifically had orders. That, and that's what in the collective bargaining agreement, they specifically listed that. Yeah, we're held to that, obviously.
Question,
Sorry.
for that, Department of Veteran Affairs, do they?
I'm a very, yep,
So you contacted them and they will not give you a DD 214?
nope, because I only work for the NGB 200 social service for the BC services. I have full benefit 100 with PA.
I'm not, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with
That's
that
okay.
specifics. I guess I'm not sure if I can go further into it.
Carla, you might want to work with the VSO, Veteran Services Officer. I have one in Martinsburg, West Virginia, that I work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't discount it right away. I would still stay in.
Obviously, the people, the meeting of this collective bargaining was responsive to any questions. So I guess they're so focused on D214 that any other services that's neglected or.
Well, we've had orders for service purchases because they had to verify. If you were deployed working for Fairfax County and came back, the county granted you service. One time you had to buy it. But to prove that, we accepted orders. We accepted DD 214s. how the ordinance is gonna be written, but how the collective bargaining was, he specifically cited that. And that's probably gonna be the same language in the ordinance. Now, the ordinance can be changed. It's been changed many times. That would be a question through the process if you want to do that.
I just want to caution, sorry, I just want to caution real quick on that ordinance change. I think, Larry, just like some of the work that goes into that, I do appreciate that point, and we're trying to work on an ordinance change now, but that's difficult. I think, as mentioned in the other teleconference just today, please reach out to the union, express very specifically what's needed, as this might be looked at as actually a bargaining component rather than something that the board or the URS board can affect change. As Brad mentioned early on, we are working on a couple ordinances now, but this has to go through a personnel subcommittee hearing and then on from there. And Brad, if you want to add any color to that, feel free. But I just want to caution people, like, please reach out to the union, and we're happy to work with you if you have those ideas also, though. But it's much more complex than it was before.
Yeah, I'd say specifically, reach out to us at the email address, that service purchases at fairfaxcounty.gov with your information in terms of your situation. At least that way.
I have the form available. That was given to me when I had the ETS.
Yeah, so that way I can bring it to the county attorney's office and approach from that aspect.
Now, if you want, I brought with me. So what you guys need me to do for that, anybody that serve other than D214 paperwork.
Yeah, if you have a copy, I'll take it and I'll look into it. Absolutely.
Wow.
And if you can provide your contact information.
Problem.
Okay.
But don't leave.
No,
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a good point. If you guys have any ideas right now, because there is an ordinance in effect, right, or in the works right now that we're looking at adjusting what is written to make sure that we can get everybody there, whether it's sheriff, helicopter pilots, and on down the line. So please share any information with Brad and the team right now. It could really be beneficial to a change by the board, which we're projecting for a personal subcommittee hearing in June.
you have to approve it May 21st, it's post approval.
The May 21st is for this, so I think there's a step after that to do. Mhm.
It's more direction for the official day.
Okay, so whenever you all do decide to apply for it, we'll receive the application for the military purchase. It is so far, now it's the DD-214. That'll give us verification of how many months you're eligible to purchase. And then I'll give you the application before you leave today. So, I'm sorry. Yeah, and then so give us 30 days on or after May 21st to get us just time to be able to complete it. So what we'll do after that is just give you a contract to let you know how much it's going to cost. Like Larry said, if they verify you have 36 months or 48 months, we'll do it for the total amount that you're able to purchase. You do not have to purchase all of it. So that's kind of unique to this sort of purchase. You can purchase some of it. Roughly, you can just, divide it out. If you have 48 months you're allowed to purchase, you can just divide the total number by 48 and it'll give you an idea of what you'd be able to purchase in terms of whole months. So give us 30 days to get the information out to you, and then we lock it in from 60 days of the date that we send you the calculated cost. That gives you time to figure out what you want to do. After the 60 days, the original contract is null and void, so you'd have to request a recalculation. And at that point, it would be done with your salary history as of the date we do the recalculation. So for somebody in here asked about the July increase. So if you turn in the application to purchase, May timeframe, even if it takes us 30 days and or let's say you did it in June and it's after the July 1, we'll still use the date that we receive the application on. Obviously the costs are pretty expensive. Yeah, submit it before the 13th if you want to do it under your. Yep. So once you get the cost, obviously it's pretty expensive. So you have some options on how you can break it up. You can set these up as payroll deductions to be a post-tax deduction. 4 years ends up being 104 biweekly pay periods. So we'll coordinate with your payroll contact to have those taken out. You can pay lump sum. So pay everything off at once. If you would like, you could just pay an initial lump sum and then set up the remaining as payments. After the initial lump sum, though, the only lump sum payment we can make after that is if you were going to pay it in full. So we can't just accept intermittent lump sum payments throughout. At any time, really, you can cancel the contract. Typically, you get credit for it at the end. So once it's paid off, if you cancel it or terminate it prior to completion, you do get partial months and whole months. So you can do that either because you just don't want to pay for it anymore, or maybe you resign, or maybe you enter drop, whatever it is that you decide to do. Okay, so you can pay as a check. You can roll it over from a qualified fund. If you guys want to use your 457, that is optional as well. Yeah, so the thing is that, I mean, we'll accept pre-tax money. It's going to be listed as post-tax in this system, so it's kind of a weird area.
Limit us only 50,000, or limit us to what we are allowed you guys
To take out?
I talked T row price, there's no limit, what you take out as long as it's pre-tax. If it's post-tax, they don't. Like, you're gonna get dinged on it, you know.
That personality,
Yeah, because you're literally doing pre-tax from one retirement account, basically, is how they look at it into another. So there's no,
because
you know, else than no penalties.
Well, our part would be a rollover. Now,
Yeah.
since this was military service, it's the only service that you don't have to refund. You can't get credit for the same block of time with the pre-tax deduction. So in our system, this will count as a post-tax balance. You won't get the credit in the military pre-tax and by in our system pre-tax. You can only do that once, and you've already done it in the military service.
Wait, no,
what? I'm confused
no,
now.
I'm talking about T row price.
Yeah, we'll accept their money, and they could send the money you gave them. Sorry. Agreed. No, when you transfer the money to us, it won't be in our system as a pre-tax deduction. You could transfer it. It might not be a taxable event, but you can't, nobody can get the same service, a pre-tax deduction for the same block of service. And the military was already a pre-tax deduction. So when you buy into our system, you still have the military service, but it'll be counted as post-tax money in our system. We will transfer it. It might not be a taxable event, excuse me, taxable event, but we can't accept pre-tax money when you've already have that service as a pre-tax in the military.
How's the IRS gonna see that?
It'll be a direct transfer, and it shouldn't be a taxable
Yeah,
event.
that's why I called T row
Mhm.
price, they said.
I agree.
They've read the contract, we just said, only the pre-tax money can they transfer over, and it goes from one account to another, and they
Yep.
sent me the form to.
Yeah.
So whenever this goes in effect, and it just literally moves from one account to another.
Exactly.
We're not saying we're going to charge you taxes on it. We're just saying that, like, we allocate it as a certain, like, when you have your entire account balance, because when you pay the money, it's not like we keep it. It becomes your account balance now. So we have different buckets, right? So we'll have one of the buckets is going to say that it's considered post-tax service purchase funds.
I'm just telling you guys to reach out to T row price,
Mhm.
best, and find out how much you actually have pre-tax, whatever.
That's also something that the county don't have information, we have to call.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have.
Because you're transferring the money to us. We're accepting it, but we're not separating.
Don't tell us.
Pre and
what
post tax.
information they need from them to move the money to them, it's not gonna cut, check it.
They'll tell you how
It's
much
gonna
you
go
have
account to
eligible.
account.
If you have-
Yeah.
You have to provide.
Usually what you do, because we'll do this with buybacks or
Mhm.
buy-ins now, is it the contract that we provide you, you can give that to T row and they'll use that. And then whatever funds you have that are available to roll over, you can do that. So, they should not need anything from us in terms of us signing something, but if they do, then we can do that also. This part we already talked about. Got a little ahead of myself. And now I have questions. Do you guys have any questions for us? Other than what we've already covered?
So let's say I put out $1,000 to give you guys for my retirement by lump sum and take the T row price to give you guys. And then 2 years from now, I'm back with cancer or whatever happens, right? So what happens in the money?
What did you do after you gave us money? Did you retire?
No. I'm
So-
not-
Okay, so you're still an active employee.
Yep.
There's a part of a spousal option. Do you have a spouse?
Yep.
They can elect 50% of what you would have received if you would have retired the day you died, or refund, including the money you transferred to us.
Many years. Yeah.
Did you complete, in that example, did you complete the whole purchase? Because we also give you credit for a
Yeah.
partial. then it would be based on the additional 4 years. Yeah, we reach out to the spouse and give them the option of the 50% or the refund rollover.
Or if they've done the first.
Well, that would be retirement, not dying on the active payroll.
And if you don't have a spouse, the contributions live as part of your balance here, so you can still list a beneficiary. It just would be the lump sum total paid to them.
Get the amount.
But you paid in interest plus the rollover.
Oh,
Your account gets 5% interest every year.
You had a question? Did you?
I think,
Yeah. Oh, just kidding. Maybe you were yelling. You have a question?
if we're in that 17-18 year range, can we use the buyback to get to the 20-year early retirement? Okay, so it's not just
That's correct.
backwards in 25.
No, they have to make assumptions, to correct me if I'm wrong, you have to make assumptions to have a cost, right?
Yep.
So a lot of this is, that's just how they do the process to calculate what it is. You still are able to retire when you want to.
And you're saying
Me.
20 for early, right? Not 55, 20 for. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you're not 55, 'cause that's normal retirement. So you hit 20, early retirement, depending on, there's no age restriction once you hit 20.
65.
Total service has to be 20, including the service purchase.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, you could also purchase it and have 10 years and leave, and you'd still have a deferred vested at some point,
55.
Yeah, the 25 years, just so that they have a basis of calculating how much the cost will be.
There's eligibility for early and normal.
And then the follow-up question is, you mentioned that basically there's a period of time in July, it's 2 weeks where like there's promotion for pay, not promotion, but the increase in salary. Can you speak to that?
Yes. If we have the request form before the 13th, it'll be at the salary before the pay increases, because it's supposed to be at the current salary when we receive the form. So if you're gonna want an estimate, I would recommend doing it before that date, because the cost will go up with the pay increases. If you do it August, it'll be with August. We take your per hour rate and annualize it. That's your current salary used in the calculation. We take your per hour rate and annualize it for the salary used in the buy-in calculation.
2080.
Yeah, but if you're looking at the 56-hour schedule and using the lower salary to the 40-hour, that's your full-time salary. And we could talk if you have more questions after.
I have an online question.
Okay,
For Animal Protection Police were ACOs, SCOP, not law enforcement, until 2016 when they became police. Are people who have previous ACO experience and carried firearms able to qualify for this buyback, or only previous law enforcement experience?
good question.
Question.
Yeah, we have to
Wait.
look to see what those
You're talking about
Services.
service with us,
all Fairfax County.
but it all lives under URS, yeah? So it doesn't matter. They're not buying back stuff.
Yeah.
It's
That was all Fairfax County service, and they didn't refund anything. They have that service now, so there's nothing to purchase.
Yeah.
If they refunded it, then it would be a buyback and not part of this either. We currently allow somebody works for Fairfax, leaves, comes back, they can purchase their past service. I'm not sure that question.
He's clarifying his
Okay,
question.
excellent.
No previous ACO experience from another department.
yeah.
With
So,
Fairfax County,
Do you
so
want him to unmute to ask the question?
it's fine with me.
sure, I don't care.
Would you like to unmute yourself to ask the question? I don't know if it'll work, but we can try.
It sounds like the service is all here though already.
Does this work?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Hey, so several of our employees were ACOs for another jurisdiction, like
Okay.
Montgomery County, that kind of thing, before they came to our job. They were not invited, or they are not at this meeting because they do not have previous law enforcement experience because they were not considered law enforcement at their other job. However, they were hired by a police department. They carried weapons. They were just sworn as S-cops, which are not law enforcement under Virginia code. They did the exact same job that we're doing back before 2016. are they able to buy into this system, or only those with law enforcement? Because as of 2016, APP is now law enforcement.
We don't know.
We'd
We'd
have
have to, yeah, we'd have to ask the county attorney. There's too much information there we don't deal with normally, so. We
Okay.
have to, can you just send a specific email and, we'll forward the question. We just don't, if it was under VRS, then there's 18-month limit that they'd have
It
to
is
do.
not,
Any
one of them was Montgomery County, Maryland. One of them was Goochland County, which is not VRS, it's their own retirement system. So that kind of thing. But I will send an email and ask that specific question.
Okay, yeah, because under the portability agreement, they'd have to do it within 18 months of working for the county. This is separate, but there's too much that we don't know about that specific question.
Okay, no worries. I will shoot an email to you guys. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay, no more questions online?
Was the day that we have to put in for the?
Pay increases are effective either the 13th or the 14th.
13th.
13th.
My fault.
Board
July 12th.
on or before.
July 12th.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. And like I said, all this information and recordings of this session. You have another question, Amy?
We might. No, guess not.
Okay. All this information will be posted on our retirement website. There's a link in the materials in front of you in the agenda. So by the end of this week, all this information and the PowerPoint presentations will be available there. And we need to follow up. You can always reach out to us with any questions. Thank you.
Just quote you with the rest of the